Hello, welcome to Krachtwerken. Over the last few months I have noticed a few videos talking about the Behringer line of pedals, and nearly all of them have put the Behringer line of pedals in a fairly good light. And I thought to myself, this is a bit odd because they aren't really good. Now, I'm going to make a distinction here. I don't have a problem with Behringer pedals or Behringer products, not really. I use the DI box. I use the Euphoria as an interface on a daily basis. Never had any problems with it. It's quiet. It's crystal clear. It goes up to 96 kilohertz. In fact, I think it goes up to 192 sampling rate. I had the Tube Monster overdrive pedal, which was amazing. But I'm going to set that aside because what I'm trying to talk about here are those classic Behringer plastic effects pedals. So there's been a couple of big channels which have kind of picked them up a bit, saying, you know, they sound great and what. And I don't get it, because I've had 4 of them. And to me, regardless of the price, they are unusable. Point number 1, for reasons I'll get into. And secondly, from a cheap point of view, there are better options nowadays. So if the reasoning is that you want to buy Behringer pedals, or that you're suggesting Behringer pedals for people who are starting out, or people who don't have a lot of money, or students, or whatever, it doesn't make any sense anymore, because you've got Donner and NUX and ENO and all these pedals that are actually really good. So the reasons I don't agree with what they're saying is because, number one, they have like a weird internal noise. So they're kind of modeled off the Boss pedals, most of them. They're usually direct copies, or at least attempted to be direct copies. Even the Bolt style is kind of copying the kind of Boss way, you know, the way it switches. So I think I had 5 actually. Anyway, in all of the plastic-based Behringer pedals, the knobs were wonky. So they were wonky. Some of them were really loose. Some of them were really tight. They worked, but they were, the consistency of, you know, how hard they turn were completely over the show, and some even wobbled. I don't mind the fact that they're made of plastic, to be very honest. I don't really care. Although the lack of the plastic might mean that it's not properly shielded inside, which means that might be a source of some of the internal noise. They're buffered, which again is not a big deal for me, unless, in my opinion, the Behringer stuff is not a great buffer. Probably get better buffers. The fact that it introduces noise both engaged and bypassed. So if it goes through the buffer, I'm assuming that if it's on, it still goes through the buffer, through the mechanism and out. And the internal noise is quite high on each of the ones I had. The sound itself, the ones I had, you know what it's like when something is like something, but there's just something is not right. So I think the problem is, like, when you go to the Chinese makes, the Donners and the Joyos and all that kind of stuff, they mimic closely the pedals that they're trying to copy, but they're not trying to be direct copies, but inferior. So they sound like an OCD, they sound like a Tube Screamer. They have the same nuances, the same kind of feel, and the same kind of application, but they don't feel like they are an attempt to be an exact copy. They sound great, they sound nice and open, there's no internal noise. Yeah, there's enough stories about them, maybe from a manufacturing point, not being 100% all the time, but that's what you get when you buy cheap. We all know that you buy cheap, you buy twice. Whereas the Behringer seems to be an exact copy, but it's just not there yet. And I think that that's quite a distinction. What I also don't understand is there was one from Full and there was one from GHS that I've literally seen in the last couple of days, bigging up the Behringer pedals. And they talked, Phil McKnight mentioned the noise, but he mentioned it in the context of using compression and distortion. In my experience, the EQ pedal had noise both on and off, both dialed or on unity, which to me made it completely unusable. You cannot put noise into a signal from the start, because if you then add drives afterwards, you just constantly like getting more and more noise included in the signal. Phil McKnight's video had 6 pedals on the board, all in series, and I didn't hear any noise in his video, and he didn't complain about the noise. He just mentioned that there is some internal noise. But again, it's kind of the way he spoke. It was like in the context of it being, you know, he had a compressor, he had a Tube Screamer clone and stuff on there. So as if it's like in the context of, yeah, you add compression, you add drive, you add noise, but we know that. But if the stuff is off and you're just going through the buffers, it's there already. I also have a video from years ago where I was trying to figure out this whole tone suck issue. Do they actually suck tone, or is it just a mental thing? You see a plastic cheap looking pedal and you play through it and your bias just goes, oh, this sounds shit, instead of it actually truly sounding shit. So what I did was I did like a kind of a null testy thing where I took the same phrase from a looper and I recorded it into my DAW through the Zoom, the G1 X-On, a bypass pedal, a Behringer pedal through the buffer. I can't remember what else. And then because I had like because it was exactly the same WAV file, I could line them up exactly and see what the differences were in the WAV files, if there was any obvious WAV files, and zoomed all the way in. And to my surprise, obviously, there was pretty much no difference in it. So you would imagine that if there's noise included, if there's some tone suck and the volume drop, etc., that you would be able to see it really zoomed into the WAV file. And that honestly wasn't the case. However, for some strange reason, when you play through a Behringer pedal, when I have played through Behringer pedals, there was this lack of excitement. I don't know how to put it. It is as if there's just something that feels like a drag, right? So the tone suck to me is kind of very appropriate way of saying it, because it's like, it's not like it doesn't, it's as if it lags. It's not really as if it gets subdued. It's more like it lags. It's a weird thing. Anyway, the point is, if you introduce noise in the pedal, if you have a buffer that introduces noise, if you have circuitry that introduces noise on and off, to me it becomes unusable no matter how cheap it is. And then if the tone is kind of, then what's the point? And thirdly is you have more than enough options nowadays. I'll give you an example. If I bought my basic range of pedals and I wanted to save money, so I go and buy the Behringer pedals, I might buy 4 or 5. I might buy a drive, distortion, some delay, reverb, maybe something else, maybe a boost, maybe a chorus, flangers, anything like that. At around about £20, $20, they're pretty much the same wherever you go. You are 100, 120 quid down. For that kind of price, in my opinion, right now, you're probably better off buying a multi-effects pedal, a digital multi-effects pedal. No noise, sound better, more flexible, a lot more pedal options internally than just the 5 that you bought. So that's one alternative. Joyo, NUX, ENO, Donner, fucking you name it. The Harley Benton range, which are probably just Donner pedals anyway, probably a better alternative. Zoom, multi-effects pedals, just don't use the cab or amp simulations because that sucks. But otherwise they're fine, much more flexible. Now the reason I separated out the Tube Monster was because I can't say enough good things about it. I have a video about it because I thought that it's in such a big case that it leaves so much room inside for it to be a platform for modding. Anybody who knows what they're doing could mod the fucking shit out of that thing, right? It's very basic. It's like a big box. The electronics all sit on the small little panel, and then you've got the little tube on the one side, and you've got all this extra open space. It's true bypass. It sounds amazing. It's got really good ranges on the volume, tone, and gain knobs. You can get great crunch to high crunch sounds out of it. It's brilliant for boosting. The only reason I got rid of mine was because I got the Blackstar HT Dual. And although I don't think it actually sounds better, it was more versatile for what I do, and it was more capable of doing high gain stuff than high overdrive stuff as the Boss does. The other thing that I would like to mention that is my experience over the last few years with Behringer is that they can be really good, but they might be inconsistent. And to me, that's not an issue in a way that you buy something, let's say off Amazon, thing is not 100%, you send it back and have them replace it. It's kind of like a potluck thing. Whereas I think with some of the Behringer products, that's not necessarily the case. I think some of their audio stuff does not fall under that same rule. It looks to me like this Euphoria range is really good and really affordable, perfect for home studio. So that's kind of what I wanted to say. It's like, I find it slightly suspicious that you've got people who dabble in really high quality guitar pedals, that they would not mention these aspects of Behringer pedals, of the plasticky range, and kind of make it as if they're okay to buy, because I honestly don't feel they're okay to buy for anyone. There's enough Behringer stuff that is okay to buy, so this is not an anti-Behringer rant at all. This is an anti-plastic Behringer pedals. Now, tons of people are going to tell me that the stuff sounds great, I've been using it. Sure, but to me, this is my personal opinion and my personal experience. They're noisy, they tone sucky, even if it's just like some mental thing. The build quality is shocking. Like, it's not just the fact that it's plastic, which I really don't care about as long as the insides are shielded, but how the case is like stuck in the bottom. You can actually kind of sometimes move it, so you can see the like little gaps between the different parts are like movable. Where the little socket goes in, there's like these gaps, and the socket can wiggle. So it's just like, it's just a little bit meh, right? And considering that you can buy really nice aluminium enclosed pedals that sound really great for maybe a wee bit more. I mean, the Behringer pedals are probably still on the cheapest side. I think that, you know, that's probably a better option. So to tell you which ones I had the bass graphic equalizer pedal. I had the distortion overdrive pedal, you know, the one, it's also a Boss copy where you can blend the distortion and the overdrive tones. I really like that pedal. That pedal really sounded good. Except for the internal noise, that's the only reason I got rid of it. To me, it sounded better than the Boss version of it. That's, again, my opinion, but I'm quite specific about the tones I like. So at the HM 300 copy, I had the delay And I had one more and I can't remember, this has been years ago. So anyway, to recap. It's noisy, and to me, it's too noisy. It's not like, oh, there's a bit of noise there. So, to jump around again, but there was a picture on one of the Facebook groups, pedalboard Facebook groups, and the guy had one of these Behringer pedal boards, you know, the ones that have the little recess, and you can put like, I think 5 and 5 or 6 and 6, and it has the power and everything included. It's like a box and you close it up, and all of them were filled with this specific Behringer pedals. And I could just imagine if you go, so the first one goes shh, the next one goes shh, so that's shh, shh, and the next one's shh, 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 and then at the end of that you put a distortion on, and it must be just like before you even hear the noise. It must be, I mean, surely. Unless I was the only unlucky one to have 5 Behringer pedals that all had exactly the same noise. And I'll tell you a little story for nothing. So I have a video which I really trashed the bass equalizer pedal. And I did a few things. One thing was to actually record the noise that is both on and off. The internal noise. It's like a shh sound, it's like a hiss. And before you say anything about, it's my cabling or my flipping grounding or what, no, it's not, because I run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pedals and distortion, and I don't have that noise in that. And if I put one of the Behringer pedals in exactly that, with exactly the same power supply, I get it. So it's not my board, it's the pedal. Anyway, so I trashed this thing, I recorded it. It makes like a whoop sound when you switch it on, which I can only assume is the noise of the caps loading up, charging up. I've heard it on other pedals, but there was also the shh sound that was really dominant. And so then I basically kind of trash talked it a bit, and then I eventually recorded it, throwing it into a bin. And this is Behringer, right? So what they did was, it was getting a lot of hits, because my videos don't get a lot of hits, but this one did. And then I did a research and I found my video, I kid you not, on the Behringer website. So they obviously saw this video about the bass pedal. They didn't watch it, because if they fucking watched it, they would never put it on their site. And then they put it on their site. Hey, look, here's a video of me trashing the fucking pedal. There you go. So if you put all that together, you go, well, why should I buy those? There's other few little issues I have with them, like they have that same attempt at, you know, obviously the engagement pedal, but also the way that you can then put the battery underneath it. So you disengage the whole thing, flip it open, put the battery in, and it doesn't work like the Boss pedal at all. It's an actual fuck around to get this shit open. It is fucked up. It's really, really cumbersome, and you actually can't do it without having an extra tool with you. So the Boss pedal, you just undo the little screw, you put a new battery in, and you're done. So if you like on a gig or in a dark or something, you can do that, but you couldn't do that with the Behringer pedals. No fucking way. Anyway, that's my rant for today. Thank you very much for watching, and subscribe and do stuff like that. Thank you.